ما يحدث بالعراق بال2018 بالقرن ال21 مهزلة يشهد عليها التاريخ، وتضحك علينا دول العالم الفقيرة والعندهم دكتاتورية كلهم مجتمعات. وياكم أنس، أنا جيت إلى العاصمة الأمريكية واشنطن دي سي. هاي العاصمة اللي بيها تصنع كل قرارات العالم، وخلفي مبنى الكونغرس الأمريكي. ردت ألتقي بناس يفتهمون بالوضع وشنو اللي دا يصير، وأريد أفتهم كشاب عراقي عايش بالولايات المتحدة الأمريكية شنو اللي دا يصير بطريقة يفهمها الشباب، ما يفهمها بس اللي هم باع بالسياسة. اليوم التقيت بالخبير الاستخباراتي السابق العسكري اللي له خبرة بكل اللي دا يصير بالعراق، له خبرة بالسياسيين العراقيين بمحاربة الإرهاب. وقبل أيام بسيطة وأشهر كان هنا موجود بالكونغرس الأمريكي، لأنه الكونغرس الأمريكي من يريدون يفتهمون شنو اللي دا يصير بالعراق يدزون عليه. إلى سنين وسنين، عشرات السنين قضاها بالعراق بالعمل الاستخباراتي حتى يفتهم الوضع. اليوم حتشوفون مقابلة وياه ويجاوب عن أسئلة نريد نفتهمها.
You see here with more Michael Pregent, national security expert and senior fellow at the Hudson.
Michael Pregent joins us, military advisor and former intelligence officer.
Within a matter of days, Ramadi will change hands back.
So Michael, what's happening in Iraq? What's going on in your opinion?
The biggest thing that's going on right now is what happened today with the Iranian consulate being burned in Basra.
Yeah.
To see the Iraqi youth from a Shia province rejecting Iran's influence on the country and also rejecting the Shia political parties that are tied to Iran. And I think that's something that we just haven't seen. 60% of Iraq's population is under the age of 30, and we're starting to see the Iraqi youth push back against corruption in their government, push back against Iranian interference, and also want a better relationship with the United States and the West when it comes to education, economic investment, and traditional Western influence on a country. Pro-democracy movements, pro-education, pro-economic stimulus, and less of a military relationship.
Do you think Trump even care about Iraq?
Yeah, one of the biggest criticisms that I have of the Trump administration is that they think Iraq is okay. That as long as ISIS is defeated, Iraq is okay. And the issue with ISIS, it's not defeated. And the president needs to understand that you have a country, Iraq, a very proud people, a people that have always been a power broker in the Middle East, whether it was under Saddam or whether they had their traditional position as a bulwark against Iranian expansion. Yeah. Now being weakened and its citizens saying, no, enough. We're tired of this influence that other countries have had on us and we want to push back. And I think this pushing back is the right thing.
So Trump supports Haider al-Abadi or the U.S. administration. They do?
But he needs to understand that, Abadi is not necessarily the guy. Abadi has allowed Qasem Soleimani to do whatever he's wanted to in Iraq. Abadi's weak, in my opinion, and not weak as a person, just weak in the fact that he has to get everybody to agree with him in order to do something. And Maliki still controls a lot of the political influence within the Shia political parties, especially the Dawa party.
So does Trump even know who's Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis?
Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, I don't even think he knows who Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis is. He's a designated terrorist, the leader of Kitab Hezbollah, and he's been designated by the U.S. government. And yet he controls the budget for the Hashd al-Shabi. He controls the budget for the Shia militias. He answers directly to Qasem Soleimani. Hadi al-Amri is also an issue. And I have a big problem with American security officials and think tank individuals that say Hadi al-Amri could be prime minister. I'm like, well, if Hadi al-Amri is prime minister, that means he's going to answer to Qasem Soleimani the same way. Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis. Exactly. And the argument is, well, Hadi al-Amri is not as bad as Qais Khazali. Hadi al-Amri is not as bad as Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis. No, he's worse because he facilitates what Qais Khazali and Muhandis and Haji Shibal and Akram al-Kabi want to do in Iraq. And it's to tilt it towards Iran and use Iraq as a way to go put pressure on Israel through Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, and other places.
Us as the Iraqi youth, we woke up after 2003 knowing that the United States brought those politicians in our face and we're supposed to choose them. Did really the United States think that those politicians could run a country with a deep history like Iraq?
You saw that with border corps representatives that were meeting with the United States in 2003. They spoke English, they wore suits, they were very pragmatic, and the United States made the decision. Who hates Saddam as much as we do? Well, the Shia Iraqis.
Yes.
The problem is the Shia religious political parties got involved and started hijacking what the people actually wanted. With every election since the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003, we've seen the Shia population, the Sunni youth, the Shia youth reject the religious parties, the Shia religious parties and also the Sunni religious parties. But they still win anyway because they were able to put pressure. They were able to pay off tribal sheikhs. They were able to put pressure on them with the accountability and justice law, the terrorism law, and be able to marginalize charismatic politicians from the Sunni sects, from the Kurdish sect, and from the Shia sects.
What are the current parties doing about the demonstrations right now in Iraq?
Muqtada al-Sadr is trying to hijack the youth protests, trying to say that they're his, but they were saying no, we're not with you, we understand you, but we're not with you. The Hikmah party is trying to get the youth to join them as well, but they're saying no, we know Amar Hakim.
And the youth are smart enough to know that they do not represent them.
Right, they're rejecting moderate Shia religious parties and they're rejecting hardline Shia religious parties.
What are the demonstrations asking for, and what should the U.S. government do about it?
The United States should encourage Western media to cover the protests, to cover the demands of the protesters, because they're not asking for death to America, death to Israel, the exit of U.S. forces. They're
asking for help.
They're asking for electricity, water, internet, and when they ask for it, they ask for it in English, Arabic, and Farsi. And we should do more to shed light on this, because these individuals, again, 80% of Iraqis across all the sectarian divide are against Iran's influence in this country. 60% of its population is under the age of 30. In 2021, they are going to cultivate leaders that are going to be able to rival the traditional Shia religious political parties, traditional KDP, PUK parties, and also the Najafi party and the Alawi
Do you think
parties
the
as well.
election was, what did we do wrong in this past election?
20% of the population showed up to vote. So no.
That's the problem?
That's the problem. Nobody came out. Nobody came out to vote, and Sadr was able to mobilize, 1.5 million voters, and he got the majority of the vote.
So that was one problem, that the Iraqi youth need to understand that they need to vote.
They need to vote. They need to vote because if they vote, Sadr wouldn't have won that election. But the problem is there wasn't a party for them to vote for. There was not we don't have to call it secular, we don't have to call it moderate, we can call it a nationalist party that views all the Iraqis the same way. Yeah, some liberal movements, but then when you add communists to the liberal movement, it dissolves. When you add Marxists to it, it dissolves.
Too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
بالنهاية أريد أحكي الخلاصة، بس قبل ما أحكي الخلاصة أريد أقول الدول تنبني بأبناء وطنها، بالناس اللي يسوون فد شيء للبلد. وفرق بلد جيد عن بلد مو جيد الشعب، الناس اللي يسوي فد شيء يدعموه، يوصلون رسالته. أنا أتمنى هاي الرسالة توصل للجميع حتى نبني وطننا، لأن بالنتيجة وبالنهاية العراق ما حد حيبنيه غيرنا، احنا الشباب بإيدنا. ومثل هذا أني وبسبب هذا أني جيت اليوم لهنا العاصمة الأمريكية واشنطن حتى أفتهم الموضوع. والخلاصة مالتي أنه هذول الناس اللي انتخبناهم غلط. الانتخابات كانت فد شيء مهم، كان المفروض نطلع وننتخب. حسب كلام هذا الشخص أنه هادي العامري وأبو مهدي المهندس وقيس الخزعلي والمالكي ذولا ناس خطرين على العراق وممكن يسلمون العراق بيد إيران، بس بالانتخابات الجاية نقدر نسوي فد شيء. فلازم تكون هاي المظاهرات مالتنا، مو مال مقتدى الصدر، مو مال عمار الحكيم ولازم نعرف، واحنا صحينا وعرفنا انه هذول الناس مو زينين. هسه كل اللي علينا ان نستمر وما نسمع لاهل العمايم، للاحزاب، للسياسيين، والكل الناس اللي يريدون يبوقون من عندنا هاي الثوره اللي دا نسويها. تابعوني بالمستقبل، كان وياكم انس، مع السلامه.